Sit!
Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Rich Dotson. He's Matt O'Hara.
Hey.
He's Garret Price.
How's it going?
It's going swell as we're all sitting home here on a snow day for the children. Can't come to school today, kids. A little slippery, a little cold, a little snowy.
No. I mean, it allowed us to be remote, which I don't know if that's an allowed us, because I'd prefer to be in person, but it is more convenient.
For you, who lives 3 hours
away. Right. It's the circumstances that we're in. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, for you, it's the only one that's not because it's in your basement.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that's true. Just imagine I have a whole studio where I can have a whole another room in my house. All kinds of fun activities could be going down in here. Legos, puzzles.
Legos was the first thing that came to mind.
I don't even own Legos, but because I don't have room for them. That's why. But nothing's better than snow day for kids, man. Nothing.
Absolutely.
Well, that's not true. Christmas, birthdays, lots of things. But in the moment, you're like, it's glorious. So, we're here today talking some Dynasty as it's the last week of most people's regular seasons. This is it. As we enter week 14, most playoffs are going to be week 15, 16, and 17. So the end of the regular fantasy football season is closing, which is exciting. People are going to see where their draft slots are for the most part in their rookie drafts. They start slowly inching their way into rookie prep. So you'll be into the Dynasty Nerds All 22 film room as you get ready for that. In the playoffs, just to know you have a chance, right? Like it's who's going to make it. You just hope your team makes it out of week 14 completely healthy. You don't lose Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's a championship caliber player. You hope you don't lose to Jonathan Taylor's, anybody of that magnitude. To get you through, because that's a derailment at this point of a dynasty fantasy football season. Just an injury when you lose a star player and you just can't get over that hump. So if there's any small trades you can make for those smaller players, now's the time to do it. The guys, the Alec Pierces, the Darnell Moonies, the Chris Rodriguez, along those guys.
Rich and I pulled a little quick trade here towards the end of our season as well. Chris Godwin, I think, is a good guy to go out and get, an older guy that all of a sudden finds himself kind of healthy, kind of insulation type of players, right?
Yeah, Matt gave me a 27-second, probably a later 27-second, but my team's in full rebuild. I'm taking any and all draft picks. People are going for cost, if not even less than cost. But I think Godwin, for not producing this year, 29 years old, I think a second's more than fair.
I would. That was one of those ones where I was like, I don't even know that I need this guy, but if he accepts it, I'll take it. If he doesn't, I'm not going to negotiate. Like, I didn't really need him, but he is like an insulation guy that I felt is at least warranted if I want to make a championship run and just kind of insulate myself from injury a little bit.
And this is where you guys can find like pennies on a dollar, right? Like you're looking at those teams that are at the bottom of your league, guaranteed to miss the playoffs. And listen, circumstances change. Like I'm in a league where I've lost 3 straight, like my team, and now I'm the 7th seed. And I'm 55 points behind like the guy who's in 6th seed with the same record. So, and then of course he's playing the team that's 0-13. Of course, that's what they work out. So he's going to get in, right? So like now I'm automatically like, I just assume I'm out. Like that's what I get. Every win matters. Every point matters. I'm going to probably miss the playoffs by about 40 points, same record. Look for those teams that are now realizing they're out of the playoffs and target like those guys, like Matt said, like the Chris Godwins, those veterans that you can get for second, maybe 3rd round picks off somebody's roster, just to give you a little bit of depth, just a little bit of cushion, a little bit more security, a matchup where you're in position to succeed, right? Like where an injury, a hamstring, an ankle does not harm you for a week, and you got to get by and just have the best matchup. And this is the best time of the year to do it, right? People are getting veterans off their team for pennies on a dollar. Definitely guys that are 29, 30 years old that might not hold value next year, the Zach Ertz of the world, just because they know after this season, nobody's going to want them. Nobody's going to give them any value. they'll be struggling for a third. So guys that could possibly get a second now, and listen, a late second in 2026 for somebody that you could potentially start or give you that security to win a ship is not end of the world.
No,
Correct.
Definitely not. Yep. Even maybe we'll even do this as a show next week or a part of a segment of a show. This year, I think, was my most definitive, like, I refuse to be in the middle, like going into the season and then even like planning in season with like trades and things like that. Like, I refuse to be in the middle of any league. And it's really interesting how it's worked out, where about 75% of my teams are like top 3 teams. And then the other 25% have like 3 wins or less. And I think I only have one team that was like coming out of a rebuild that kind of ended up as like one of those middle teams, just because I know better days are ahead, but I wasn't quite ready to go all in. But like outside of that, like just the value of, like those Chris Godwin moves and some of those kinds of things, like, they're seemingly small and insignificant, but sometimes it's just, I don't want to pay the draft capital on a guy, or I don't want to give up this pick or whatever it is. But realistically, that's what keeps you in the middle, because you're not willing to go that extra little bit. There's guys where I look back in the offseason or, week 5, week 6 that I paid for them. Like, I probably overpaid a little bit. For that player, but look at where my team's at. It's worth it to secure those spots.
Yeah, and get the ship, right? That's what we're looking for. So, and speaking of going into next year, that's kind of the show topic. If you read topics going into the shows, like, graveyard, like players, like Garrett's like, hey, what do you guys want to talk about? I'm like, man, who are some players that we think are, as we enter the last week of the season, we might be able to get them off your roster for pennies on a dollar, that we think are just going to hit the almost zero value turn, like impossible guys to get off your roster that might hold some value today if they have need. So guys that we think in 2026 are going to plummet ADP rankings. And I was, for me, one of the first guys that came to my mind was like, man, it was Marvin Harrison Jr. And I didn't want to put him on the show because I don't think he's going to lose all his value, obviously. But from where he started before the year to where he'll be up after this summer in a rookie influx, like he's going to go from, going back 12 months, a top 12 startup, wide receiver that you loved, probably to a mid-range wide receiver 2 range, right around there. It depends how somebody, like how risky people want to get. Like at wide receiver 18 would be a mid-range wide receiver 2. Do you feel comfortable taking Marvin Harrison over some, like a guy like, who's not doing great, like Romo Dunze, right? Like he's in that Ladd McConkey range, who hasn't repeated his wide receiver 1 range. Like, where does Marv fall down there? But I went actually with a quarterback. So this is going to be talking to all the super flex leagues out there. A guy who I think now has just entered the range of graveyard player that nobody's going to want anything to do with. He's going to enter that Bryce Young territory. And honestly, I think some people might be even willing to risk it on Bryce Young on a straight up trade to get younger and more long-term. And I want Tua Tagovailoa. This year has been a disaster for Tua, who, just previously with the help of Tyreek and Jalen Waddle was like, not too far away from leading the league in passing yards, has come out this year. He's quarterback 22 on the year. He's 20th in the league in passing yards with 2,280. He has a 67.2% completion range. His 190 yards a game are 31st in the NFL, which is terrible. His 14 interceptions are tied for the most in the league with Geno Smith. He offers no rushing upside. His 43 scramble yards are 37th amongst quarterbacks, offering no rush side whatsoever, which we know is equivalent to fantasy quarterback value. I see a guy who's on a team that's probably going to enter a complete reset here, the Miami Dolphins, and who's going to pay a quarterback long-term money that has a concussion history of Tua Tagovailoa, the stat line of Tua Tagovailoa. And to me, doesn't mean he won't get an opportunity. But again, this shorter quarterback experiment has not been running well in the NFL over the couple of years. And for me, I think Tua is about to become one of those names, those high-end names that everybody knows, that's about like the Jameis Winston, right? That enters that backup quarterback scenario. A quarterback, somebody who they're going to give him the opportunity to come and sign, draft a young guy, and start to enter that Russell Wilson fame. We're like, hey, you know what? We're just going to go ahead and move on here, right? Like the poop's in the pudding, boys, and it doesn't look good. It's for Tua a massive slide on somebody who's still not even, I think he's 28 years old, somewhere around.
He's 27.
27. Not an old quarterback. Like, so he still has that youth value. I think there may be an opportunity where, like, when he gets off the Dolphins, maybe somebody gives him an opportunity, somebody who's desperate. But usually when we see this happen, there's not many instances, and I know we've been spoiled here lately with Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones. There's not many instances where the quarterback just gets released or goes out somewhere else and finds a lot of success over the history of the NFL. Quarterback is the most coveted position in the league. They get overpaid at times just because you want to have a guy that can actually just run a competent offense. So for Tua, once he leaves Miami, you can argue that we go to a team with a better offensive line. You're gonna be hard pressed to find a better run game than Devon Achane, and Jalen Waddle is a very competent receiver. It's gonna be hard for me to find an open position where Tua is going to find some success. And for him to get any kind of contract where there's no going to be longevity because of the concussion issues, would be my projection. For a dynasty asset, I really think like I'd be moving Tua for anything that offers me any kind of long-term value, a first in a super flex league. If it's possible to get that, somebody need a quarterback help, right? Like they're desperate. I know I'm in a league where somebody's really desperate. They're the number one seed. They're really desperate for quarterback help. I don't know if they'd give a first for Tua, but maybe they'd possibly give a first for Tua. Any younger receiver that offers upside, like even right now, I know it sounds crazy. Like, man, like I'd be considering like, okay, I have Tua in super flex. Like, okay, Wan'Dale Robinson, who's performing really, really well.
Oh, wow.
For the Giants. I don't think I wouldn't do that, but man, like that's how scared I am of Tua right now.
So the
those young guys to be in that position.
Listen, I'm with you as far as the player. I do think, he's shown enough this year that you should be worried about his value and all that kind of stuff. What I don't know, and I don't know how to figure out, is what is going to happen to him. Is he going to get booted? Listen, you look at his contract, he's got $54 million guaranteed as of March 14th, 2025 for 2026. So that's guaranteed money. So I'm not sure he's going to be off this roster. I do think this is going to be a situation where Miami kind of goes in a different direction from a head coaching standpoint, but whomever is there might kind of just be stuck with Tua, at least for next year, to see, does this marriage work type of thing? Can another coach get more out of Tua? So I'm not sure he's completely dead in the water as far as him starting next year, just because there's so much money tied to him and Miami. So he might get another shot there. I don't know how it's going to look. Things haven't looked great this year. So I'm still with you from a player standpoint, but I just wanted to make that note that he does have a lot of reasons, monetarily to still be there in Miami.
And honestly, Matt, that makes it a little bit worse for me. Right? They don't have a good offensive line. They got no offensive playmakers outside of Jalen Waddle that you could throw the football to. I know Devon Achane is a weapon in the receiving game. Out of 17 touchdowns thrown, Achane's got 4 of those. And for me, that's even worse, right? Because then he has to go through a whole regime change, most likely, because if McDonald survives, new offensive coordinator, new system. How's the team going to look? It's not going to be a quick fix for the Dolphins. I can't imagine. So that's even worse for Tua. And right here, I am looking in the trade browser and super flex leagues. On the 30th, Tua went for a 26 first. Tua for Alec Pierce and John Mechie. Wow, this one's really bad.
Alec
Tua
Pierce and John Mechie,
huh?
He went for Alec Pierce and John Mechie. You said,
yeah.
Ooh, I'll take Tua for that.
Tua and Xavier Worthy for Michael Penix and Marvin Harrison. That's a week ago. Chris Rodriguez. Wow, some of these are pretty brutal. These trade.
I think I could see more early seconds than late first. I think somebody's willing to gamble on them. Like me, I would probably be willing to gamble. If you were selling and I said, hey, I'm a rebuild. I'm just trying to do the best I can to try to find quarterback. I don't know how long term, but I'm willing to give you 202 or something like that. Would you take that or no?
No, I probably wouldn't. I would probably gamble for any kind of spike than a late second week class. Me personally, like again, it just comes down to value for me. Like I'm not saying give it 2 away. And I know I started to show like, oh, dude, I'm considering like taking almost anything. And I mentioned a guy like Wan'Dale Robinson, which means it's wide open. But like he is only 27. Like Matt said, he's going to be the starter next year. And the thirst for quarterback does get really real. Like I think I would hold out for the first. Like I'd rather reset on the first. When I go to tight end premium leagues, his trades just the other day, he went for Dylan Gabriel and Sam Laporta. He went for a 26 first. He went for Deebo Samuel, a 27 first, a 27 first. Tua and Chase Brown for a 27 first, which I wouldn't be terrible to do that.
So I mean, we have like this wide range right now with a guy like Tua, from Sam Laporta and who is it, Dylan Gabriel, which is just a throw in a tight end premium, all the way to like Chris Rodriguez or like a, kind of a John Mechie, Alec Pierce. So there is like I think a very wide range as to what people, how people view Tua throughout this whole community. And I think that speaks volumes to like, just like there's uncertainty around this player. So I think in general, when there's uncertainty around a player, it's for a reason. There's enough people out there that see this cliff coming that they want to get out from underneath it. And there's also enough people that have been like, all right, I've seen enough good to say, hey, this guy can operate in the NFL. So it's really tough to nail down these type of things, but I think that he's a great guy to mention in a conversation like this, just because we're not the only ones thinking this. When you look in the trade browser, it's all over the map, it seems like, for his value. And
just because he's still going to be with the team and probably starting next year doesn't mean his value can't plummet still. We saw Bryce Young at points this year where his value was almost non-existent. Michael Penix were times where his value was almost non-existent. Players like that. So both can be true. Like you could still be on the team and still be playing, but not have any, we saw that with Daniel Jones a couple of years ago, where he basically his value went to zero almost. Like, so I think both of these things can still coexist.
Yeah. So I right now I would hold out. Probably I would take a first for Tua at this point, depending on my needs. If it's a late 26 first and I have 2 quarterbacks already on my roster, I'd be okay with it. If I don't, I'd probably hold out for like a 27 first and just wait until the offseason or next year. Quarterbacks will go down. People will get desperate. Like Matt said, if he is starting for the Miami Dolphins, there will be some value where people are like, yeah, I don't love it, but I'll pay the first for Tua next year.
And for the record, I have Tua in more than one Superflex league. I would 100% take a first right now. It doesn't matter what year. Just give me the first. I'm good with it. Because I would as well.
I'm 20. This is 2026 graveyard. So I do think, again, in 2026, at some point, Tua will enter that graveyard and lose that value. At some point in 2026 is where he enters the graveyard. Not this all season. This is our predictions for 2026 graveyard players that we're trying to get ahead of about 9 months early.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And we didn't mention it earlier. We did try to avoid like the old players. Like, okay, yeah, we could throw Derrick Henry in there. We could throw Alvin Kamara in there. We could throw, guys like that. But like we tried guys that are either young-ish or at least in their prime type players that, we think are going to lose a lot of value. So we did not take the scapegoat route and say like Cooper Kupp's going to have no value next year. Like we're actually trying to look at players that are going to have a significant drop in value that otherwise might not, because they're not old dudes.
Right. So I guess with that in mind, I'm gonna bring up probably a guy that might be a little bit controversial. But my graveyard player for 2026 is Kyren Williams, running back for the Rams there. And obviously the last 2 seasons he's had really good finishes. He's finished as running back 7 on the years, both years in PPR, and currently he's running back 9 on the season. A little bit lower in PPR, he's running back 11. On a points per game basis. Not PPR, at 15.4. So not bad. I think it's down maybe about 1.5 points from what he was last year. But he's just he's tied with Marion Hampton, and he's just above guys like Genti, Derrick Henry, DeAndre Swift, Rico Dowdle, Saquon Barkley from a points per game basis. But I guess what has me troubled is, we've spoken about statistics on repeat RB1s before, and even to get to 2, you're looking at pretty stiff odds. But when you go from 2 to 3, I believe is when it really goes down into like those teens as far as percentages. And he's likely going to finish somewhere close. I'm not sure if he's going to eke it out and stay as an RB1 or not this year. But once we get through all the buys and everyone's played the same amount of games, he'll drop. He could drop pretty quickly to 12, 13, 14. But if you go from running back 1 going 3 years to 4 years, that's when you're in like single digit percentages as far as just being able to do it that many times. So Kyren Williams is a guy that I've always kind of discounted a bit. Obviously, when he first came in, most of us did. He came in, he kind of popped in his second year, and obviously his third year were really good too. But he always has felt like a 2 to 3 year window type of guy. And I feel like this is a window that's kind of closing around him right now as we speak. So if you look at his split, obviously last year with Blake Corum, Blake Corum didn't get a lot of run. Neither did anyone else on that team. So they had 435 rush attempts last year, and Kyren Williams got 351 of them. Blake Corum got 58 of them. So that's a 81% share for Kyren Williams, a 13.3% share for Blake Corum last year. And even if you look just throughout this entire season, 272 attempts right now, 183 of them are going to Kyren Williams. 89 of them are going to Corum. So that's a 67 and 33% share. But if you break that down even further and just go the last 6 games, so we're kind of trying to build a trend here, and it's 148 rush attempts. 88 of them have gone to Kyren Williams and 60 have gone to Corum. So now we're already at a 60-40. So we can kind of see where this thing is trending, and it's trending closer and closer to like a true 50-50 split for 2 guys that have seeming to really kind of be able to fill a very similar role in this offense. So right now he's in our value as running back 14. His ADP at the beginning of the season was, in the second round, or no, right after the second round. So right at the beginning of the third round. And he feels like a player that's just kind of primed to slip. If he gets into this 50-50 range, he's gonna be one of these players. He's 26 years old. He's kind of middling in this running back 15-16 range, and then you're living in the land of RB 20 through 30 with guys like DeAndre Swift, Rico Dowdle, David Montgomery, Trey Benson, Warren, Jalen Warren, J.K. Dobbins, and there's a big time value difference between a guy that's back-to-back RB7s and all of a sudden this guy who's 26 and now he's RB 15, 16, 17. So I don't think his value is completely gone. I think there is a big-time value difference in those 2 things, right? So that's kind of why I think Kyren Williams is going to take a big dip. Guys, what do you think?
Yeah. Again, you just go back to statistical odds. The odds of him ever being a running back 1 again after this year, if he pulls it off this year, are under 10%, which is going to be really hard to do. I love how you mentioned the last couple of games, going back to 6, Blake Corum has looked pretty good over these last couple of weeks. He's looked like a very competent running back in the NFL there. And the fact that they also trade up and got Jarquez Hunter this year as well. And Sean McVay was excited about that. They said a role for him. And you mentioned how last year was like all Kyren Williams and a little bit of Blake Corum. We could see the same thing next year. It was Kyren Williams and Blake Corum this year, and next year it's a little bit more of a mix and gets watered down. And Kyron's always kind of dependent on just being the bell cow running back to ascend to that running back 1 spot or a top 12 running back spot. And yeah, that's great because that's what we're looking for, right? There's opportunity and touches in the NFL for these running backs. And anytime you can find a guy like Kyren Williams, who's not the most excellent, top tier running back in the league when it comes to skill sets, just the amount of touches he gets has always propelled him into, like you mentioned, Matt, running back 7. Running back 7 has a real good chance to be a running back 1 this year, which I did not think was going to happen with Blake Corum and Jarquez Hunter, but he's going to pull it off again, which is great for the Rams. So right now, as you enter playoffs, if you still have a trade window, this is a perfect player outside if you're not contending that you could probably get a first plus for, right? You could probably get Trey Benson and a first. You could probably get an upside young running back or an upside receiver plus a first for Kyren Williams. And this is the perfect time to get out from running back like Kyren Williams, right? Anybody who's not, the first round pedigree or when you watch him play, hey, this is a special guy, right? Like the Devon Achans of the world. When you watch him, like this is an elite running back. Kyren Williams is an above average running back in the league that could be easily replaceable in an offense, right? You could take another guy. You can make Blake Corum the starter in this offense, and he'll probably produce what Kyren Williams is producing. So any chance I can get out from a running back after 3 years of production that I don't consider that tier 1 running back, that's my number one move I love to do in Dynasty and trade for first plus, right? Because then I can use that first to either grab another running back or draft a running back, either one. Definitely if I can move that first to 2027, I'd be absolutely ecstatic about that. And plus with this time of the year where people are so thirsty for help, especially at running back, like the plus on top could be something that you love. They'd be really happy with. Like I mentioned earlier, like a guy like Wan'Dale Robinson, like an upside guy like that can give you some solid numbers. See how he plays with the league next year, but get that on top of coming back. I mentioned Trey Benson. I would love to gamble on a guy like I mentioned his name a couple of times. I think it's free value. Like, can I get a first, a second, and Jonathan Brooks out of Carolina? Like just kind of like some kind of like spark behind there. And honestly, just a first and second, I'd be happy with that outside of a running back. And I know that sounds crazy to some people's, like, hey, this is guy's a running back for 1 and 3 years. We just know historical data tells us that it's over pretty much. Like that's like, if you get that home run pick, excellent dynasty rookie pick trade, like one asset, like a home run and all, if you're running back 1-3 times, like that's a home run hit. Like that's grade A tier 1 asset. Cause we have a lot of guys who are stars that can't do that, right? They just can't do that for that many years in a row. So a first and a second off a running back, cause for sure that first pick, that no matter where it is, if it's 2026 or not, you'll be able to trade for a solid running back in return, right? And almost like a guaranteed guy going next year. Like if you just want to hold on to that first and wait for a guy you feel comfortable going in the season, there'll be somebody you can move that first for, and maybe even like that first and second for and get back. Maybe it's a Trevion Henderson, because now that Ramondre Stevens back and he's splitting shares, and people are like, you know what, Ramondre's Trevion's just a timeshare running back. Give me the first and second. That's a huge win for me. Those are the kind of moves you'll be able to make this offseason as people enter rookie fever.
So it's interesting because I feel like I'm about to talk a little bit out of both sides of my mouth. But on one side of things, I would honestly, like, I'm totally with you guys in the sense of just going for the draft capital. I might even be willing to just take the first. Like it might not even take the second. Like if it was even just pick 10, 11, somewhere in there, like I would probably be willing to just reset. I've liked what I've gotten out of him, and now I'm going to just get younger and kind of reset this whole thing. I think I would be fine for just a first. So overall, I'm with you guys. If you can get the second on top, I'm thrilled, but I would be probably willing to just take the first. The only thing that does give me slight pause is his contract. His contract, there's nothing they're going to do with it after this year. He just signed a new deal this offseason. So in year 2, he has over almost a $9 million dead cap, and his overall cap hit is only a 11.6. So they're not going to save much by like moving on, getting rid of him. So I do think he's going to be around and still relevant, but I do see that cliff probably happening, even though they're not going to get rid of him, even though they're not going to move on. I do think that you look at Blake Corum, before I even knew that Blake Corum was going to the Rams, Kyren Williams was my comp for him. Jarquez Hunter was a Blake Corum comp. Like they have a type, they have a guy that they like. They're smart players that do a lot of the little things right. They might not be the biggest, the fastest, the strongest, but they do everything well. They're well-rounded backs. So I could easily see both of those guys coming in and playing a much bigger part of the offense. I don't think Kyren Williams fully goes away, but I do think his value from today, and if we look exactly a year from today, I think it is drastically lower.
Yeah, and I think that's where he fits the graveyard mentality, right? Like he will be on the Rams next year. I think they do kind of continue to use Blake Corum, who mentioned Jarquez Hunter as well, and he'll be a little bit more of a timeshare for a running back that relies on like 85% of the carries, like Matt said before. And I think by the end of in 2026 is where he enters that graveyard, where like now you're no longer getting that first for Kyren Williams, and that's the mentality. And that first round pick is so valuable in that running back window because it really is kind of a limited window to get that kind of draft capital for running backs. And it's not just even because of the talent, because sometimes it just really comes down to like, yeah, I could do that, but I could pay a second for this guy. Because there's also those older running backs people are just willing to get off their roster for much less value. And if the production's not there for Kyren, then you lost on that opportunity. And you're right, Garrett. I would take a first straight up for Kyren Williams, 100%. I would really want to push that to 27 if I had to just take the first then. That's what I'd want to do. But like that opportunity, and every time you get that opportunity, get that value for a running back, it's such a savvy move into making dynasty. Garrett, who do you got for us?
Yeah, so this one hurt me a little bit because I love this player, and I have a lot of shares of this player. But I ended up going with Michael Pittman Jr. As my graveyard guy for 2026. He's a player that people already didn't like. For whatever reason, there's certain guys that like hold that luster for a long time. And then there's those other guys that for whatever reason you throw offers out there and you get crickets or you get countered with like gross, ridiculous counters. And especially after how rough last year was. And a lot of that was due to the back injury and poor quarterback play, but people had already kind of given up on him. His ADP in the offseason was in the hundreds, but we've seen a little bit of a resurgence. And a lot of that has to do with Daniel Jones. We saw him kind of reemerge as the guy, and that's really boosted Michael Pittman's numbers this year. And for a while, we were seeing him as a wide receiver one in fantasy football. Well, things are starting to slowly trend again in the wrong direction. And he's now down to wide receiver 13. And his last, and that's overall, that's not on a points per game basis. That's overall. And his last three games, 3.9, 13.7, 2.3. And while he's still going to go into next season as a 28-year-old, he's not like old and decrepit. We're seeing guys like Devontae Adams do it at 32, Stephon Diggs do it at 30. Like we're seeing guys play much longer. But when you have, I could see a similar thing happening to Jonathan Taylor next year. That happened to Saquon Barkley this year. Ridiculous amount of touches. They leaned on him super heavy, and he's just not as effective next year. That offense runs through Jonathan Taylor. So if he's going to take a little bit of a step back, now there's less scoring opportunities for this offense. Tyler Warren is emerging as probably the number one in this offense. Josh Downs, even though he has not been nearly as good as we want him to be, isn't going to go away. And Alec Pierce, if they bring him back, they're going to be paying him a decent amount of money to come back. So this is just a player that while I have time left in this season or early in the offseason before the ick hits him again and everybody's like, ew, Michael Pittman Jr., I think he's a player that could really lose a lot of value. And this time next year, we're not talking about him in the same type of circles as borderline wide receiver one. All that being said, even though I think his value would jump off a cliff, he would be the exact type of player that I would sell today and then buy again a year from now when that value decreases. Because I still think he'll be a solid like wide receiver 3 type of player for next 3 years or so. But I do see that value dipping. I want to get out from where it is right now and try to get that borderline first round pick because I think it's going to dip quite a bit after this.
Yeah, I agree. Michael Pittman's got that play style, body type, speed where like I don't comp him to play into his 30s like Devontae Adams. And like he's the kind of player that starts to fall off at 29, 30 years old. And there's so much more upside on that offense. Instead, if they bring back Alec Pierce, that's a really big swing on Michael Pittman's value. And you got to look too, like, you know, the first half of the season, you know, the Colts had a kind of a much easier schedule. And now the second half, we saw these last couple of weeks, the Colts not playing, like these guys aren't producing as high of a level as they were for, you know, like Alec Pierce is probably one of the more valuable players outside of, Jonathan Taylor. And even Tyler Warren's kind of taken a dip a little bit against his harder schedule. And then going to 2026, we're talking about the Colts, who have a really good record, are going to make the playoffs. They're going to have a playoff schedule next year. So they're going to play in a much tougher schedule. They will play in 2026 compared to 2025. So there is a lot of worries. And I think the big thing is like some of these players just always get labeled with, like you said, Garrett, the ick, right? Like, oh man, like, you see those HR memes where like the one person comes, like, hey, this is it. Like, oh, that's great. And the one is like, I'm calling HR. It's the same exact thing, same exact player. And Michael Pittman's like one of those players that you've never been able to get real value out of. Even when he was producing at wide receiver 1 levels, like nobody's ever confident in him long term. They'll find some kind of avenue. Like now they have Tyler Warren, they got Jonathan Taylor. Oh, it's Daniel Jones. Is he coming back next year? They'll always talk themselves in not paying for Michael Pittman. And you're never going to give him away because he's producing, right, at that wide receiver 1 numbers. I think he does kind of settle back a little bit closer to that like mid-range wide receiver 2. Maybe some spike weeks all with Michael Pittman maybe touches if he could get those touchdowns. But for me, I think we've entered that range where some players you go down to a little bit longer as they age, and some people you just want to get out the right time. I don't know if there's ever really been a right time for Michael Pittman in a couple of years, but hopefully sitting at wide receiver 13, somebody needs some receiver help. Again, going back to Amon-Ra St. Brown injury, somebody that needs possibly some help. This would be a really good time to offload him for that first round pick value.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I'm going to echo a lot of what you guys said, but going back to his type of this type of player, like he's kind of like a Cortland Sutton. Like we always wanted more out of him, right? They're big bodied guys that really don't have that extra gear to like really burn downfield, but they're above average as far as, going up and getting the ball. But they need the type of quarterback that's really going to throw to him even when they're not really open. You know what I mean? They're not going to really ever be guys that have a ton of separation and all that kind of stuff. So it can kind of creep up on you pretty quickly when you're that type of guy. And to your point, I think that's where the ick factor comes in because they're not doing any splashy stuff. They're just kind of there catching passes and they're never really truly wide open and running or anything like that. It's usually contested balls and it's a catch and fall type of situation. So, Michael Pittman, heck of a player. I'm glad to see him bounce back this year from the injury, but when you look at the numbers, it's obviously trending in the wrong direction right now. I mean, as far as targets and all that, he's had a couple of spike weeks, but it does seem to be fairly inconsistent, which just makes him hard to rely on and increases the ick factor for me anyway. I have him, and I don't even know when the hell to start him. I feel like every time I do, he disappoints, and every time he's on my bench, he blows up, and I'm just like kind of pulling my hair out week in and week out with this guy. So I totally get it. And if that trend continues, I think they're going to end up finding other guys on this roster that you had already mentioned that are just more consistent players and kind of bigger playmakers to kind of take him away even further. So I could see him definitely drifting back from where he is now into those wide receiver 3 numbers, like you said, Garrett. And then it's you're scrapping together to hopefully maybe get a second for a guy like that. So, if you're lucky, basically. Yeah. So, I could definitely see this guy being a graveyard situation next year.
All right. Well, that moves us from our graveyard guys to guys that are maybe in other people's graveyards. But this is our I can't quit him segment. Players that we love, players that just have our heartstrings. And for whatever reason, we're just not willing to give up on it. Screw the narratives, screw the statistics, screw it all. We still believe in this player. So, Rich, who's your guy?
Yeah. This is somebody who I obviously love a ton, and I believe in his upside. And I think when you dig in the numbers, they're pretty solid. And it's Dalton Kincaid for me. And I think he's a great buy candidate right now, missing the last 3 weeks with a hamstring injury, just has not been able to stay healthy. I think people are completely willing to offload Dalton Kincaid now and this offseason as well. See how the rest of the season goes. But, Dalton Kincaid is only 26 years old on a team dire for receiving threats, right? Keon Coleman has been benched for 2 games. He came back this week and actually scored a touchdown, but does not look like things are going very well for the 33rd overall pick in Buffalo at all. It looked like it's turned into a big-time bust. When you look at Dalton Kincaid, what he's done, he's been a very solid tight end when he's on the field. In 8 games, he's got 29 receptions for 448 yards and 4 touchdowns. He has 36 targets. He's averaging 12.2 PPR points per game, which is most excellent for that like top end tier 2 of tight ends out there. In his 12.2 PPR points per game amongst tight ends is 8th best. He was tight ends, for the first 5 weeks when he's fully healthy, he was tight end 2 overall. His 9.4 ADOT is number 1 amongst all tight ends with 18 and more targets. He's number 1 in yards per route run. He's number 1 in yards per target per game and yards per reception at 15.45, which is 0.7 more over Tucker Kraft. And his 56 receiving yards a game, which he averages, is 6th most. And this is a player who, when I watched his tape coming out of Utah, was a player I just really loved his route running and his ability to get open. Nothing crazy after the catch or anything like that, those lines like Tucker Kraft, but a very savvy player who has not been playing a position a long time. So at 26 years old, this is the kind of guy, if he can stay healthy, I completely expect going into next year full-time in this offense to be at 27, 28, 29, 30, entering the prime years of his career. And where he can kind of really excel. And I can easily see Buffalo picking up his 5th-year option as well. And I think Buffalo's clearly shown like they want Dalton Kincaid to be a part of this offense when he is healthy. They want to get him involved. And it's just about him staying healthy. And that is a big concern. But that's why there's also a discount on Dalton Kincaid as well. So we all need tight end help. Even if you got Tyler Warren, you still need that in a tight end premium league. You want that backup tight end or just have a quality backup. And Dalton Kincaid right now, if he can be had for 2 seconds, especially in tight end premium, a player that can offload off where I'm heavy, I'm definitely all in on Dalton Kincaid. And I still believe in that long-term value. I think he's the kind of player that, hey, I got to be a little bit patient with, but I think the juice will be worth the squeeze down the road.
I'm with you there. I besides the injury, he's having one of the best years of his career here so far. He's got the same amount of yards already through 8 games that he had all last year through 13. So he's definitely kicked it up a notch this year, which, the Buffalo offense in general is a difficult one to kind of come along in and make an impact early. A reason maybe Keon Coleman is having a hard time as well. So don't give up completely on him. But Kincaid, it's just the injuries. I think you nailed everything that you were talking about as far as them wanting to have him in the offense. I think the offense in general just looks better when he's there as well. So it's not, I don't think it's just them wanting him to get involved. I think they need him to be there to have that offense kind of clicking on all cylinders. So, obviously we don't know yet if he's going to come back this week or not. That hamstring injury is kind of lingering a bit. But whenever he comes back, I think they're going to get him kind of cranked back up in this offense. So, he should be valuable towards the end of this season. Again, we'll see if he ever puts it together for a full year and what that looks like. But to your point, he's a player I can't quit as well. So I totally get why you can't quit him, Rich.
Yeah, I've always been the low man of the three of us on Dalton Kincaid, and I do think that there's a very high likelihood that they bring in a receiver this year, an established receiver, because we've kind of seen what this offense has been since they've not had a go-to guy. And I think they were hoping it would be Kincaid and hoping it would be Keon Coleman, and just for different reasons, it's never panned out. But even in saying that, I think Dalton Kincaid is one of those players that I think would feast as the number 2 option. I don't know that he's somebody that I would want to trust. If I'm an offensive coordinator, I'm a head coach, I don't want to have to trust him to be Brock Bowers, Travis Kelce, those kind of guys. But if I can trust him as my number 2 guy, and he's somebody that, is jacking up the coverage over the middle and things like that, he could maybe put up just as good, if not better numbers, if there's a number 1. So this is another one where I feel like I'm talking out both sides of my mouth. Do I think that there's a high likelihood of being the top guy in the offense? No. But do I think that is better for him long-term? Yes. Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. I had the same thing down. I even say it where, he has a clear he has a path to be the number 1 in his option, but I'm with you. I think they do bring in a receiver, and I think that's really good news for Dalton Kincaid, where they can kind of shift the coverage and kind of do their play calling where they get shift and Dalton Kincaid on a different side and open up a little bit more. Definitely some NFL teams next year are still going to run a lot of that too high cover two to open that stuff up short in the middle for him. And with that A dot, it's fantastic news for him to kind of shift coverage away from him to really open up and let him feast and be that number two option in an offense, which would then I think actually make him a better fantasy football option for your team as well.
I agree. Matt, who you got?
Well, here we go. So I don't have much of a leg to stand on with this guy, but Xavier Legette is the guy that I absolutely cannot quit. There's not a lot of reasons besides him occasionally popping up and looking good, because obviously everything. What'd you say?
When was that?
When was that? In week 11, he looked good. In week 7, he looked good. So listen, here's the deal. I honestly think he's in one of these situations. We saw it with Marvin Harrison, where the quarterback, he's just not willing to throw it to you. He can't see you. It's not a great situation, quarterback to wide receiver, as far as the connection. And we've seen it a couple times where they've said, "Oh, we kind of force fed him the ball." I think one of the times he blew up was when Andy Dalton came into the game, and was able to throw passes to him. The second time, the coach basically came out and said, "We made it an effort to throw him passes." He got 8 targets. This is a guy that is a former first-round draft pick. I know there's another first-round draft pick on the team this year, but you would think they would be making a concerted effort already to get him the ball. But it's almost like he's a non-entity. Every time he gets the targets, he produces. Sans the beginning of the year when I think everything was just a mess, like the first 2 games. He got 7 and 8 targets and really didn't produce much with them. But, week 7, 11 targets, 9 receptions, 92 yards and a touchdown. That was, I think, the Andy Dalton game. And then in week 11, 8 targets, 4 receptions, 83 yards and a touchdown again. He's a big-bodied guy. He can do some things, but they have to be willing to throw him the ball. And it just seems like it's not really happening here. And he might be, like what I was talking about a little bit with Michael Pittman. You might just have to throw it up when it doesn't look like it's there, because he's good enough and big enough and strong enough to kind of go up and make a play. And it doesn't seem to be clicking quite yet with him and Bryce Young. And maybe this is a player that takes a change of scenery to kind of get things clicking, or a change at quarterback. Obviously Bryce Young is starting to click a little bit and do better towards the end of the season, but we saw this last year too. And this year, same thing, started really slow, was out for a little while, came back, it looks good, but can you really win in the NFL like that long term? I feel like the Bryce Young experiment could go either way in the offseason. They could look at him and go, "No, we need to upgrade this position," and just try to go out and get a guy, which would be, I think, great for a player like Xavier Legette. So that's why I can't quit him. I just think he's got too much talent that's being kind of unused, period. Just untargeted, unused potential there in Legette. And the guy's still, he's a former first-round draft pick. So I think there's still a little bit of time. We always talk about not always getting instant gratification for some of these guys. It used to be the rule was 3 years on guys to kind of get to the NFL, transition, and make an impact. It's not anymore. But that doesn't mean that this player isn't that. You know what I mean? Just because time has shifted and we've seen a trend kind of shift, it doesn't mean this one player isn't more like those other guys from the past. So I'm not giving up on this guy yet.
I got nothing to support your cause. I've seen nothing whatsoever. I know this is a book that you loved coming out.
I knew I would be on an island all by myself, but you guys asked who I can't quit, and it's him.
But you know what? I mean, I guess, for trust, if you want to trust Matt, I mean, Xavier Legette's not costing you much, right? If he's on any playoff team whatsoever, they need any help for anybody you just want to offload. Like, he's the kind of perfect player. Yeah, he falls in that category when I'm in a complete rebuild. I got nothing going for me, and I just need to move some picks or I have some player I'm trying to get off my roster. And say it's a player that, like, at this time of year, like, he's a solid player. He's producing. I just want to get him off my roster, and nobody wants to give me any pick value for him. Like, I don't want to say, like, I'd rather gamble on guys than like Xavier Legette. that offers me some upside at some point. Maybe you have a massive resurgence like Treylon Burks.
Massive resurgence.
Catching one pass for a touchdown.
Totally be facetious. But, like those are kind of players like when all else fails, like at least that's something to hang your hat on and kind of give you some upside there. And you love this tape. You give him the AJ Brown comp. So that's good enough for me over nothing. And there's a guy I want to get off my roster. Like he's the perfect category of a player where like, hey, I have something that holds value today that won't hold value later. Xavier Legette at least gives me the opportunity to get some value down the road. And that could be the classic, like right guy to trade Zach Ertz for, to a team that just needs a tight end for the playoffs, like that kind of move. Yeah, a running back you want to get off your roster that's not doing anything right now. Like same thing. Yeah. Somebody needs any running back help whatsoever or receiver help at all. Like, hey, Darnell Mooney right now for Xavier Legette. Okay. Sure, take him. Yeah, never know. All right, well, the last one here. This is my I can't quit him guy. And this was a player I guess it would be now he's in year 3. So 3 years ago that I had the 3rd highest grade on nerd score wise in the class at running back, behind Bijan, behind Jahmyr Gibbs, but ahead of some other good running backs was Tyjae Spears. And look, I know that this has not panned out the way I wanted it to pan out. And not even for the reasons people were out on him. It was like the knee stuff was why everyone was out. This dude, for the most part, stayed pretty healthy. He missed a little bit of time to start this year, but overall, I think that's only the only real time he's missed. So he's stayed relatively healthy. It's just he's been a Tennessee Titan, and anything associated with the Tennessee Titans in the 3 years that he's been there has just been doo-doo butter. Like it's dumpster juice, it's dog water, whatever you want to call it. Like it's been bad. And he's just been stuck in a situation with poor coaching, with poor offensive line play, with poor quarterback play, with poor everything. So I don't know that that's going to change much. That's the hard part is like, I don't know what changes drastically, but the one thing I know is I still see glimpses. Like we'll see highlights almost every week from a run that he would make where he made 2 guys miss, spun out of another tackle. It was only 9 yards because he got hit 4 times before he got there, but he made something out of nothing. I've seen moves in the passing game and in the open field. They're just like, wow, he can make some movements that just other guys can't. And the one leg that I have slightly left to stand on, maybe 1.5. The half is there's going to be new coaching. Hopefully it's better. I don't know what it's going to be, but hopefully it's better than what it was. The other thing is Tony Pollard is all but gone. He has actually, from a touch standpoint, had one of the worst statistical fantasy football seasons out of a running back ever. When you consider how many touches he's gotten, he's done absolutely nothing with those touches. And you look at his contract at the end of this season, going into next year, he only has a $2 million dead cap hit, but his overall cap hit is $9.25 million. They could save $7 million, over $7 million against cap by getting rid of him, especially with a new coach coming in. He's gone. Like I would be shocked if he's there.
Yeah, he's out for sure.
Yeah, he's gone. So, and with how many needs are on this team and it not being a good draft class, I don't see them prioritizing a running back on day 1 or day 2. They'll bring in a day 3 guy. I'm confident of that. But I think Tyjae Spears is going to have a chance to be the guy and at least show that he can do something. Now, even if you don't believe in him and like the player, at least buy and hold until the beginning of the season when people see, oh, he got 20 touches week 1, and then sell. But I think I'm not quitting him because I do believe in the player, and I do think better value is going to happen at some point for Spears.
I believe in Spears too. It just sucks he's on the Titans. It's what could have been situation. The team's absolutely abysmal. The offensive line's abysmal. Everything around them is abysmal. You better pray they move out of that number one spot, which they absolutely should for a team that needs a quarterback and get more draft capital to kind of build this team. By then, I think as long as he's on the Titans, I think it's just going to be sad news because when you watch him, you could see the talent on the field. This is a player on a different team, could definitely be a fantasy football asset. You could do worse than Tyjae Spears for sure. Then some guys you could hold on your roster. I think he does have a very good chance to be the starting running back for the Titans next year. How does that look on a team this bad? I don't know. But again, going back to the every touch range, if he can get rid of Tony Pollard, he gets all the touches. He's the main guy. He's a 3-down back, which he has those capabilities of doing. You're probably looking at a mid-range to low-end running back too, even on an abysmal team like the Titans. A safe player that Cam Ward could dump the ball out into the flat, into screens with in the passing game as well and kind of be that safety net because there is nobody else out there. Alec Manor is your highest upside offensive player, which tells you a lot right there. They have Chigo Kanakwa, which is nothing as well.
I would say Gunnar Helm. Gunnar Helm might be their best offensive player.
I do like Gunnar,
actually. He's come on
I know, so do I.
A couple weeks, so he's been a nice surprise. But a team that needs so much across the board as well, having no idea where they're going to go in this NFL draft outside of quarterback is one thing we can say for sure. And right now, the top end players aren't offensive linemen. They are defensive player, the edge out of Miami, Arvell Reese out of Ohio State. So you really hope that the Titans move back a little bit in that first round, take a left tackle, which not only helps Cam Ward, would help Tyjae Spears, and get some kind of receiver help on there. They do have a lot of money to spend, which is nice as well. So maybe go out there and sign like a George Pickens, which, someone on those lines, or trade for T. Higgins. That takes some kind of pressure where they don't have to stack the box again against the run against Cam Ward. There is a lot of upside for Tyjae Spears, so I would not quit Tyjae Spears as well. But man, is it looking grim. It's like you're in the upside down permanently as long as he's on the Titans, because right now the Titans are the black hole of fantasy football. You want nothing to do with anybody on that roster whatsoever. I would bet my life there's not a single playoff team going to the playoffs next week there's going to be starting a Tennessee Titan player.
Probably right.
I almost forgot they existed for a while there. I mean, really, it's pretty bad.
So, yeah. Before we got here, I got a note from the guys up top that, with Cyber Monday, we do that Black Friday deal and it was ended December 1st. We have a Cyber Monday, because we are a website as well. They want to run a Cyber Monday, which is exactly the same as the Black Friday deal. So if you go to the website right now, they are extending that offer for just a couple more days for this week. So time you get this podcast, it's 40% off the Nerd Herd membership. And just remind everybody what you get with that as your season comes to end. We all know Dynasty is not a year round or just a single season, weeks 1 through 14 kind of game that we play. It's year round. And the real work starts here now. If you're out of the playoffs, you got to get in that film room. You got to still breaking down these rookies, all 22 film they're going to get. So exactly what you need to watch these players. You're going to get a rookie guide, which is going to guide you through the draft process as well. It updates live as we make progress through it. So it'll be a digital rookie guide that gets updated, and we'll have film in there as well. You get the Nerd Score Plus, you get the Dynasty GM app, extra podcasts, a Discord, so much more for 40% off. It's the best Christmas gift you can give yourself. Give it a try. And I promise that, come next year when your app's time to renew, you're going to be super stoked about it. And the film room itself is worth the price of admission at 40% off. So that code right now is Black Friday 40. I know when you go on the website, though, they have their own code as well that will automatically populate in your shopping cart. So no better time than now to get ready to get you. If you missed a playoffs, let's change that. Let's get ready. So 2026 is where we turn this Dynasty team around and we make sure we're ready to compete. And I promise that Dynasty Nerds has all the tools to get you exactly where you need to be. And that's playing next week in the playoffs and then hosting that Dynasty Fantasy Football Championship. So Black Friday, but basically Black Friday 40 is the code, but basically just go to dynastynerds.com. Check it out. Don't even go to the App Store. It's cheaper to go through dynastynerds.com where you get that massive discount for your membership. So check it out today.
Adios.